Very good morning to all. So friends, welcome back to our Anthropology PYQ series where we are trying to decode every question and master every concept. So friends, as I regularly insist, so what we are trying to do, so we are trying to just learn and solve one PYQ one day. So we are meeting at 11:30 a.m. and we are trying to do that. So that's our major quest. So friends, let's not waste much of time and let's try to enter into our question of the day. So the question of the day for us is, it's nothing but write notes on the following in 150 words. So I hope all of you are joining. So join fastly so that we can start the discussion. So the question of the day is on mitochondrial DNA and human evolution. So that's the question of the day for us. So very good morning to all. So good morning. So those who have joined online. So friends, before we proceed towards knowing the approach of the answer, try to just recollect and try to answer in the chat box that from where we inherit the mitochondrial DNA. So do we inherit mitochondrial DNA from the father or mother? So type in the chat box, either it is father or mother, so whatever it is. So now let's proceed forward towards the approach of the answer. So friends, if you look from the perspective of the approach, how you can approach this particular question. So in the introduction portion, basically you can discuss or you can just mention about what is mitochondrial DNA. So generally like we have DNA, so nuclear DNA is there, mitochondrial DNA is there. So you have to just basically explain or mention something about the mitochondrial DNA. That's the first thing that you can do. And then you can briefly state its relevance and its significance from the perspective of the evolution. So that's what you can do in the introduction part of your answer. So then in the body portion, what you can do, in the body portion, you can systematically explain the role of mitochondrial DNA in understanding the process of human evolution. And it also helps us to reconstruct the human evolution and the process of human evolution. So how mitochondrial DNA helps in understanding the process of human evolution. So that would be our the major quest that you have to mention in the body portion of the answer. So I hope that is clear to you. Then finally, how can you just conclude it? So that is another important thing that you can remember. So here if you see from the perspective of the conclusion, so summarize the mitochondrial DNA's value and then conclude it with its broader significance. So that's where and that's how you can do it, right? So then if you see, what about the mitochondrial DNA? So what about the answers? What about like from where we inherit the mitochondrial DNA? So Prajna is saying that mitochondrial DNA from mother. Very good. So we inherit the mitochondrial DNA from the mother. So that is very important thing that we have to understand. So now let's proceed further and let's learn about the further aspects. So mitochondrial DNA is basically, it's nothing but it's a kind of circular piece of DNA, so which we can inherit from the mother. And where do this DNA present? So mitochondrial DNA, as the name it is suggesting, so it will be present in the mitochondria of the cell. So usually like we have different parts of the cell, so different cell organelles are available. So amongst that, if you see, mitochondrial DNA is present in the mitochondria of the cell, so which we call it as the energy house of the cell, the powerhouse of the cell. Whereas there is other type of DNA that is known as nuclear DNA. So as the name suggests, it will be present in the nucleus of the DNA. So you can see in the picture also. So if we consider this as the cell, animal cell, so generally, so in an animal cell, at the center of the cell, there would be something that is known as nucleus. So the DNA that is present within the nucleus is known as nuclear DNA, and you can see here the mitochondria. And this circular DNA which is present in the mitochondria of the cell is basically known as the mitochondrial DNA. So very, very important thing that you should remember is that unlike nuclear DNA, so that is which inherits from both the parents, mitochondrial DNA is passed entirely from the mothers to the children. So that's the uniqueness of this particular thing. So as it has this peculiar and unique maternal inheritance pattern, so it plays very crucial role in understanding the process of human evolution. I hope you're getting that. Because we do get the mitochondrial DNA from only mothers. So as it comes with that kind of uniqueness, so it helps, or it is widely helped in the evolutionary studies. So it helps widely in understanding the concepts of evolutionary biology, forensic science, and also reconstructing the migration patterns of the various areas. So that's the significance of the mitochondrial DNA. So I hope you can catch the theme. So let's proceed further. So I hope like you have understood where the mitochondrial DNA will be there. So then, if you further see the difference between the nuclear DNA and mitochondrial DNA. So three important points that you have to remember is that, so first thing, the nuclear DNA will have the double helical structure. So double helical structure of the DNA. So who discovered the double helical structure of the DNA? Can you able to recollect that? So try to mention it in the chart box. So the double helical structure of the DNA, it is the nuclear DNA, which is generally made up of like 23 pairs of the chromosomes that would be there. So then almost if you see, so the nuclear DNA codes for almost 20,000 to 25,000 genes. So each gene will translate and it transcribes into a protein. So that's how, so each chromosome will, each nuclear DNA will encodes for 20,000 to 25,000 DNAs. Whereas if you happen to understand this from the mitochondrial DNA, so the mitochondrial DNA's shape, it is structural shape. It is like circular shaped DNA, and it is present in the mitochondria. And next thing, important thing is that, so it encodes only 37 genes. Remember, only 37 genes it encodes. So that's the another uniqueness of this mitochondrial DNA, right? So you have to remember it again. So then I hope you have understood basic understanding of what is the mitochondrial DNA. So that is what you can mention. So then let's try to understand what are the key features or various features of mitochondrial DNA. So if you see, the human mitochondrial DNA, as we have discussed, it would be circular in shape and it's highly conserved and it's a double-stranded genetic material. So this is also another thing that from prelims point of view you have to remember. So mitochondrial DNA, is it a single-stranded DNA structure or double-stranded DNA structure? So circular and double-stranded genetic material, that is another important aspect you should remember. Then friends, so where does it be present? It is present in the mitochondria of the DNA, as we have said, so and not in the nucleus of the cell. So then it inherits only from the mother. So this is another highlight from 3 point of view you can remember. And then it does not undergo recombination. Very, very, very important thing is that each and every gene and chromosome, so it goes for recombination. That means we get some genes from the father, we get some genes from the mother, and both of them will recombine and it will be transferred to the offsprings. But in the case of mitochondrial DNA, there won't be a such process. So that is, there is no recombination. So this is very important and crucial point that you should remember. Then it mutates faster than nuclear DNA. So that is another important thing. So mutation is one important aspect, right? So then it is present in hundreds to thousands of copies per cell. In each cell, you can see hundreds to 1,000 copies of the mitochondrial DNA. So friends, that's very, very important for us. So we should remember this particular aspect also. Is that clear? Now, let's proceed further and let's try to understand what features of this makes the mitochondrial DNA to understand the human evolution. So, is there any question from anyone with respect to till here? Right. So, we are getting answer from one student saying that like Watson and Crick. So, scientists Watson and Crick, they have identified and they have discovered the double helical structure of the DNA. So, very good. So, you could be able to recollect it. Now, if you see, what are those features which helps the mitochondrial DNA to play role in human evolution? There. if you see the basic thing, so it is coming from, it is a powerful tool that helps in restructuring the human evolutionary history. So how does it do? So there are certain important features. So maternal inheritance, as it is passed from mother to offspring without any paternal mixing, it allows to understand clear lineage tracing. We can clearly trace the lineage of a particular person. So that's one thing. Next thing, there is high mutation rate for this particular DNA. So due to presence of high mutation rate, what does it do? It provides a fine-grained information about the recent evolutionary events. So what kind of changes did occur within this particular genetic material? So that kind of information that we can get from the mitochondrial DNA. And then no recombination. It makes the reconstruction of evolutionary trees more accurate because there won't be any process of recombination of the DNA here. So it will be a pure DNA that you will be getting from the mother side, mother line. So from that point of view, so we can establish the genealogy of a particular person accurately. So that's the core magic of it. So that's another important aspect. Then to study the migratory patterns, that's another important aspect, right? So if you see from the perspective of the mitochondrial DNA, so it helps us to allow tracking of the female lineages, and it also helps us to study the migration pattern of the people. So from where people have moved from one place to another place, how they have moved. So that is another important aspect. So I hope it is clear to you. So then let us try to understand what is the role of mitochondrial DNA in human evolution. How does it contribute for understanding, for reconstructing, and for making the process of human evolution simple? So first, one important aspect we can study from the mitochondrial DNA is that it helps us in tracing maternal lineage. So we have already understood. So we can perfectly reconstruct the maternal history. Are you getting that? So mitochondrial DNA is inherited only from the mother, so without recombination. So with this, what happens? So with this makes the mitochondrial DNA a pure maternal lineage marker. So lineage marker, so you can remember and you can highlight this word. So mitochondrial DNA acts as a lineage marker. So particularly paternal lineage marker. So with this, what we can do, so generally anthropologists can trace back the human ancestry through uninterrupted maternal lines. Through uninterrupted maternal lines. So that's very, very important aspect. So all the human species that are currently there on the earth, they'll share a small piece of common DNA from the very ancient times, from single mother. So try to imbibe this particular fact also, right? So that's what, like we can, that's how we can understand the significance of the mitochondrial DNA. Now, if you see the mitochondrial Eve and African origin model of the origin of the humans. So there is a concept called as mitochondrial Eve. So what is this mitochondrial Eve? So let's try to understand. So in the year 1987, there were a group of scholars. So like Kahn, Stoneking and Wilson. So all three of them and their group, what they have done, they have systematically tried to analyze the mitochondrial DNA. After analyzing that, so they have found some important information. What they have done, so they showed that all the humans that are currently there, they share a common maternal ancestor. That common maternal ancestor, they called it as mitochondrial Eve. So this mitochondrial Eve is believed to be present or lived in the Africa in and around 1.5 to 2 lakh years ago. So 1.5 to 2 lakh years ago, so like there was mitochondrial Eve. So from this mitochondrial Eve, so it is believed that we have got this particular present mitochondrial DNA. So that's another fact that you should remember, right? Then what does this say? So this strongly supports the theory of recent African origin of the modern human evolution. So there are recent theories that are surfing that modern human evolution is being stemmed from the Africa. So this mitochondrial Eve concept also proves or gives a kind of credence to that particular argument. So thus, this helps in understanding the origins of the humans, and it helps in understanding that all the human beings have been originated from a single maternal ancestor. That's one thing. So hope this is clear to you. Now, if you see further, mitochondrial DNA also helps us to understand, and it provides a kind of ancient evidences. So with respect to evolution process. So you can see the Neanderthal man are Denisovans. So both of them are nothing but the ancestors of humans. So their mitochondrial DNA showed a significant genetic divergence from the modern humans. So that was one thing. So there was a kind of shift from the Neanderthal DNA and Denisovan mitochondrial DNA. So that shows that, so we had inherited the mitochondrial DNA. Present species Homo sapiens has inherited mitochondrial DNA from one maternal lineage. So that maternal lineage is known as the mitochondrial Eve. So try to understand that particular concept. So then it also suggests us that it also suggests limited or no maternal gene flow between archaic humans and Homo sapiens. So this is another important finding that we should remember. So if you see from the perspective of current micro sapiens, so it is believed that there was limited or no maternal gene flow between the archaic ancestors, old ancestors. So that's how it is segregating and it is separating and it is giving and it is redefining the human evolution process. So I hope you can catch it. Now, further if you see, so we can also, it can also help us to construct the human phylogenetic trees. So what do you mean by phylogenetic trees? Phylogeny means when we just make up the ancestry, if we can trace the ancestry. So that is nothing but the phylogenetic trees. So what does it do? So it studies show that the deepest branching of the human lineage occurs in Africa, and from there everything has been started. So non-African populations show only some sub-branches of African lineage and evidence of single dispersal. So how humans have been dispersed from Africa. So it shows that the deepest branching of human lineage is from Africa. So then all the sub-branches have been spread to different parts of the world, so from Africa. So it gives credence to the argument that humans had the African origin. So Homo sapiens had the African origin. So that is another important aspect. I hope that is clear to you all. So then, if we happen to further understand, what about the other significance? So mitochondrial DNA also helps us to understand the migration patterns of the human beings as well as the haplogroup patterns. So this is also another important aspect. So what are haplogroups? So haplogroups, don't you get that doubt? So haplogroups are nothing but, it's a genetic population which shares the common genetic information. So when a particular population with a genetic composition shares a similar genetic information, that kind of group is known as haplogroup. Okay, so haploid and diploid. Do you remember that words, haploid and diploid? So haploid means single side, so like that. So this is one thing. So all the L haplogroups are restricted to Africa, and all the M and N haplogroups represent the founder lineages of Asians, Eurasians and Oceanians, and it also helps us to trace the global migrations including the people of Australia and Americas. This is another thing. So here, before we just understand this, we should understand what are the different populations with different mtDNA haplogroups. So if you see from the perspective of different populations, friends, different populations have distinct mitochondrial DNA haplogroups. So what are those haplogroups that each population has? So now look here. Africans has a haplogroup numbering from L0 to L6. So wherever you see L1, L2, L3 such kind of haplogroups, so then you can say that the L1, L2 they all belongs to the Africans. So that's what you can remember. Then for Europeans, the mitochondrial DNA haplogroups are nothing but H, U, V, X. So that's the haplogroup they have typed. Then for Asians, we have the haplogroups like M, D, G, like that. So then for Native Americans, A, B, C, D, X. So these were different haplogroups of the mitochondrial DNA. So what is now mitochondrial DNA helps us to understand? It helps us to understand one important aspect that, so it helps us to understand the haplogroup patterns as well as the migrations. So that's very, very important aspect that we should understand. So each population will have a distinct mitochondrial haplogroup. So that's what you have to understand. And in that pattern, so L haplogroups are restricted to Africa. So this is one finding that we have understood. Second thing is M and N haplogroups represent the founder lineages of Asians and Eurasians, Europeans and the Oceanians. So that's how they have given us the findings. So I hope that's clear to you. Is that clear? So now let us try to understand how we can conclude the answer. So we can say that the mitochondrial DNA has in fact revolutionized the process of understanding of the human evolution, because it has in fact provided a strong genetic evidence of African origin of the modern humans. So now you can understand. So I have said the concept of mitochondrial Eve. So what does it say? So all the current Homo sapiens share a bit of a tinge of common genetic information. So that is the maternal mitochondrial DNA. So that's what it shows. So it provides that evidence that modern humans have that kind of tinge. Then it also helps in identifying the mitochondrial Eve and tracing the global migratory patterns. So with this, so it acts as, or like it offers a clear maternal perspective on the human origins and dispersal. So that's how mitochondrial DNA plays a very vital role and plays a very significant role in understanding the concept of human evolution, right? So that's how it helps us to trace the concept of human evolution and understand it. So I hope that is clear to you. Now, the biggest question that you should get is that, if anyone would have thought it, have you thought that why do we inherit the mitochondrial DNA from only mothers? Have you thought of that? Another thing, like what happens to the paternal mitochondrial DNA? Do the paternal mitochondria exist or not? So do you thought about that? So you should get that question. So friends, what happens regularly is that, so in the process of our during the process of fertilization, let's say for example we will have a egg and we will have this sperm. So when egg and sperm, both of them, they will fuse, so we will call that process as like fertilization. Then we get the zygote. Zygote will be formed. Now, what happens here? This egg or ovum, it carries mitochondrial DNA with it. Mitochondrial DNA with it. And sperm also carries paternal mitochondrial DNA. Paternal DNA also will be present. It carries sometimes. So in egg what we can do? So in egg we can see several mitochondrial DNAs. This is one thing. Whereas in paternal mitochondrial DNA, the mitochondrial DNA will be present in the tail portions. That's one thing. And very rarely we can see it would be present in head portion of the sperm. So when the fertilization occurs, what happens means here, so it's that like the head portion of the sperm will touch the egg and they will fertilize and they will become a zygote. So even, let's say for example, if it is carrying the zygote, even if it is carrying the paternal DNA, what happens? So the paternal DNA would be marked as ubiquitin with ubiquitin protein. So ubiquitin is it's nothing but it's a protein. So remember about this ubiquitin protein. So what is this ubiquitin protein? It acts as, so for the maternal mitochondrial DNA, so the ubiquitin will be seen as a foreign material. So what happens during the process of fertilization? So the paternal mitochondrial DNA, if it is reaching, so paternal mitochondrial DNA, if it reaches till this stage of fertilization, so it will be degenerated by certain enzymes released from the maternal mitochondrial DNA. So maternal mitochondrial DNA detects the paternal mitochondrial DNA as the foreign things due to presence of the ubiquitin protein. So ubiquitin protein acts as the marker which can highlight it as a foreign material for the mitochondrial DNA of the mother. So here plays the game. So there would be certain enzymes that would be released from the maternal mitochondrial DNA and that helps for degeneration of the paternal mitochondrial DNA. So we inherit only the mitochondrial DNA only from the mother. So that's how it happens. So it's nothing but, friends, it's a kind of beautiful adaptive evolutionary strategy of the humans. So with respect to the inheritance pattern of the DNA. So remember this particular concept because it's very, very important that even you can also expect such kind of questions like why we inherit the mitochondrial DNA only from the mother. So don't the paternal mitochondrial DNA exist? So such kind of questions. So here is the answer for that particular question. So that's how, so this is one thing that we should remember. So that's why we will receive the mitochondrial DNA only from the mothers. So that's all for the day. I hope things are clear for all of you. So that's it from my side for today. So friends, if you want the model answer for the question, you can join the Telegram channel, so Anthropology Guide. So you can scan the QR code or you can just join through the link. So that's all for today from my side. So we'll meet tomorrow. We'll meet in the next session on Monday by 11:30 a.m. and we'll discuss and we'll solve another important question. So any doubts for the day? Is there any doubts for anyone? You can ask me now. Right. Okay, so that's all for today. So try to revise the concept of the basics like unit 1.6. So where you can see the basics of the biology. So from that particular concept, the question has been picked. So try to revise it in a systematic fashion. So we'll meet again with another important question on Monday. So sharp by 11:30 a.m. So thank you all for joining me with this session. Thank you all.